All right, so I've had some people in the comments ask me just what my settings are for my G7X and just some real basics on how to use it correctly. Now, I don't know if I use it correctly, but I can show you how I use it. Of course, it's got auto mode, which, by the way, if you're just getting started, it shoots really good pictures in auto mode and also really good video. But there are going to be times when you're going to be a scene's going to be backlit, or you just want more creative control, or you want to have more control over the depth of field, or if the sun's out and the clouds are moving in and out, and the light's changing. So it's good to know how to shoot in manual. There's a couple settings that I use to make it really fast. I don't know if you know this, but this bezel here is adjustable, and that's the first thing we'll look at. So let's go ahead and turn this on, and we'll get into the menu system. And number two, that area number two, that allows you to make some adjustments here. So the first thing I'll set is the bezel function. It's got that little, I don't know if that's the name, I call it a bezel, or you could call it an aperture ring, because I set it for aperture value. You can set it for shutter speed. I prefer to have it for aperture value because it functions more like a traditional old kind of vintage photo camera, where the aperture ring is on the lens or the base of the camera there. So this allows me to get more and less light, higher and lower f-stop. And that's the best way you could think about that, is more and less light, right? And so you can adjust this little switch here. Right now when I'm doing it, you can feel the clicks. They call it clicking, right? When you're changing the aperture value, you can use this little switch and push that down, and then it's smooth. It's de-clicked, which is really nice for video, because now when you're shooting the video, you're not going to hear those clicks. If you need to change that, change the lighting, amount of lighting you're going to let into the sensor, it's really smooth. You don't hear any clicks. It's awesome. So I love that. Feels a lot more like a traditional camera as well, and I shoot a lot of vintage cameras, so it's a nice, I don't really have to change the way I do things. The other thing that you're going to want to program is this little function ring button here. Now, the cool thing about this camera, it's got an ND filter, which is like sunglasses for your camera. So if it's really bright and you need to make it a little bit less bright, then you can just press function ring, and boom, it's ND off, ND on, right? Boom, done. Now, as you saw, it just kind of went almost to black because I turned the ND. Hit function ring, boom, off. So it's the same thing. You go to the menu, you can hit, it says ring function button, and you set that. You can set it to just about anything in here. I personally like ND because when I'm out and about, if I'm shooting manual and I need the ND filter, boom, I want it fast. I don't want to go search around the menu for it. All right, so right now the way I have this set up is this little ring right here is set for shutter speed. So that's easy, right? If you just want to change your shutter speed, you're like, hey, I need to get to one. Well, you're not going to change it in video. So you'll just have it double the frame rate, which is 50 for 23.95. And so you're not going to mess with that when you're doing video, but you are going to change aperture on the light, and you're going to need the ISO change, right? So ISO, this is touchscreen. It's really easy. You can change the ISO, which also changes the amount of light how the sensor responds to the light. It's kind of like ASA for film, right? So I like that there because it's just easy for me to do it with my thumb. And I usually kind of leave the ISO alone. A lot of times I'll have that there, and I'll just be changing the aperture value. It depends on how you shoot, but if you're like, oh no, I need a little more light, and you want to swing it over, it's really easy to do. So that's how I shoot video with this. Pretty simple. That's how I've got my setup on this, and I just keep it like that for manual. So for photos, actually, photos I tend to actually get a little more creative with, believe it or not, because I like to change the depth of field and such, and you can do that with this camera. So you just got to put it on the M for photo, right? And then now all the settings are the same the way I set it up. So if I want to shoot now, I might hit the switch here to click it so I can feel the aperture change when I'm shooting photos. It's just I like that feel. I like no feel when I'm shooting video, but when I'm shooting pictures, I want to know where it's at. So now I can use this little ring to change shutter speed, right? So really fast, I can move this to, oops, I can move this to 125. Boom. I can move it to 250 pretty fast. 500, whatever that is. And I like that I can change the shutter speed. And then, of course, like I said, I've got the bezel up front, and I can change the aperture light and then the ISO. So that's how I shoot with this camera manually. Then, of course, you got the flash, which is just awesome, right? I use the flash a lot when things are backlit. It's the best. So that's it. That's the basics on how I set up. Oh yeah, and like I said, if you're shooting a photo and you need the ND filter because it's super bright, you can turn that on. Okay, and that's amazingly cool. So those are my settings. I'd say that's how you use the camera. You got to play with it. You got to use it. You got to experiment. There might be days where you're just, you don't have to worry about the photos counting, right? You're not going to practice at like your family event. Go kick back in the backyard with a beer or something or a glass of wine and practice in manual mode. And hopefully that's helpful for you. This camera offers a lot of power as far as being able to shoot manually and have a lot of control. It's an amazing piece of equipment. It's still by far my favorite adventure camera when I need something small and I want control and I want a great image. I do have the Sony ZV-1 that I'm shooting on right now. It's pretty good for studio content creation. It's got decent video. I'm still partial to the G7X, but it does good for this kind of stuff. And then for photos, it's good. I think I like my G7 a little bit better, but I think that's a matter of opinion. But that's it. I hope that was a little bit helpful. It was a little shorty there. Anyways, thanks for checking it out, and hopefully that helps you out.